Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for agreeing for your readiness to provide comments on the political developments in Armenia, specifically the election, parliamentary election in Armenia. It's done already. We have outcomes. We will have a new parliament. Your assessment, your evaluation of the both election process and the outcome of the election.
Well, thank you very much for asking. I do try to pay attention to developments both in Azerbaijan, where I'm much more familiar with internal political developments than I am in Armenia. But obviously, what happens in Armenia is very significant for the region, as well as for the bilateral relation between Armenia and Azerbaijan regarding Nagorno-Karabakh. First, on the elections, from what I could observe, the process worked very well. They were peacefully held. I don't know that any of the media that I read indicated there were any problems at polling places with violence. I know that there was a concern that perhaps after the elections there would be demonstrations. To this point, I've not seen any of that. So I think the process of the elections is really a very good sign for Armenia and the people of Armenia that democracy can work, elections are important. I understand that there were some instances of voter fraud and potentially manipulation, and that's something that I think for all the countries in the South Caucasus, there is still much work to be done to make sure that the electoral process is an honest reflection of the will of the people. That said, I think the Republican Party, having received as many votes as it did, the percentage seems to be a reflection of what the population of Armenia wanted in terms of an outcome. I have, from my service in Azerbaijan and before, I was able to meet with and talk to President, when he was President, Petrosyan. And I personally, found him a very intelligent and engaging person, very creative thinker. I thought that he and Haydar Aliyev had a relationship that, if both were able to bring their publics along, could have resulted in a resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh problem. Now, I don't pretend to understand how the campaign unfolded for him and how people were reacting, because, as you point out, there are two possibilities. Either, he had his chance politically and time moves on, or because he did talk about compromise, which was what he talked about when he was president, quite frankly, when we would talk about NK with him. That was what the voters reacted to. So, I don't know what the reason was. I hope, in an odd sort of way, I hope the reason that he wasn't more popular with the voters was because he's seen as someone from the past. I would be very disappointed if voters were voting against him because he was suggesting that compromise was an answer. Because if that's the case, that makes Sarkisyan's challenge even more difficult. I think the real challenge, however, will be going forward. Will there be a coalition? I know that's still something under discussion. Who will it be with? Is it going to be a repeat of the previous coalition with the Dashnak party? Secondly, how will Armenia manage this parliamentary system? You've moved from a semi-presidential system to now a parliamentary system. It is a different way of governing, and so that will be an important test. The economy, as with all the countries in the South Caucasus, is the major social issue, I believe, and how the government deals with that. And then finally, in terms of internal developments, the whole problem of corruption. I've spent a lot of time in my research and writing on Azerbaijan talking about the problem of corruption and how that affects the quality of governance in Azerbaijan. And I think Armenia has a similar problem. I don't want to make too many equivalent statements on that score, but I think in both states, one of the major challenges beyond getting the economy right is dealing with the corruption problem. Somehow it has to be reduced, if not eliminated, as a major negative development for governance. From what I understand from the international observers that were there, ODIHR in particular, there was kind of the same conclusion, a vote of confidence in the peaceful nature of the elections and the fact that there were multiple parties, multiple candidates, that NGOs were not kept away from playing a role, that is Armenian NGOs. And on the other side, of course, the concern about the vote buying accusations, which seemed to be probably didn't determine the outcome, but were still an attribute of the election that should be improved on. So I think from the point of view of the international community, there was a recognition of the positive developments and the fact that to this point at least there have been no public demonstrations against the election. I would contrast this to Serbia, where you had Vučić won the election, but there have been demonstrations about the conduct. So it could have gone in another direction and didn't in Armenia. Ideally, particularly in a parliamentary system, the opposition has a very important role, and that is to sort of raise their hand and keep the spotlight on government policies, to keep the government moving in the right direction. And I think one of the problems for the former Soviet states has been political parties know how they would behave if they were in the majority. They do not know how to behave in the minority. If you understand the difference here, how can you be a loyal opposition and prepare your party for the next election where you hope things will be better? It's almost as if parties see their future as either totally black or totally white, and somebody has to be in that gray area because not both sides can win. If I look at what just happened in Armenia's elections and where Azerbaijan is, it's very interesting because you have Armenia moving from a semi-presidential system to a parliamentary system. In Azerbaijan, by dictate of the president, you're moving from a parliamentary system to a heavily presidential system. And it will be interesting to see whether those shifts affect the ability of both Armenia and Azerbaijan to negotiate a solution to the Nagorno-Karabakh problem. I think the biggest issue for the region now is finding a solution to NK, and I'm very worried. I know others have expressed this concern as well, but I'm worried about 2017 being a year of further military conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
And to what extent do you think that the domestic developments in both countries, both in Armenia and in Azerbaijan, might affect the decision of both sides for escalation,
Yeah.
For increasing the tension and escalation?
I really think that is the major question now. In theory, President Sarkisian has won a victory politically. He's in a clear position to govern, in the way that he would choose to govern. I would hope that would make him more confident and more able to negotiate a peaceful settlement of the NK conflict. On the side of Azerbaijan, I guess I'm more worried because President Aliyev's use of warlike rhetoric is troubling, and given all of the controversy that surrounded, the removal of the Minister of National Security and of Communications and now the Minister of Transport, seems to indicate within the regime some tension. And I worry that might encourage military action as a way of unifying not only the regime but the people of Azerbaijan. So on the one hand, I guess I would hope there would be some cause for optimism on the Armenian side, but I think we're going to have to wait a little bit to see what will happen on the Azerbaijani side. That said, there's no reason not for both presidents to begin to engage directly with each other on this. It may seem odd for someone like me to say, because I've been pretty critical of Russia's role in the region, but honestly, what they've said and how they've behaved within the framework of the Minsk group has really been quite consistent with what I regard as U.S. policy. That is, how do you encourage the parties to reach a peaceful settlement through the Minsk group and putting the responsibility on both Baku and Yerevan for reaching that solution. And I think if there's anything that can be done, again, in this post-election environment with Russia encouraging, as they have, direct contacts and being supportive of the French and U.S. co-chairs, as they have, I'm very happy. I would be pleased if there was that would result in a solution, peaceful solution to the NK problem. So I think there's an opportunity here for Russia and for Baku and Yerevan to cooperate on this, and I hope the new administration here in Washington, though we're still in the early days, would take a similar position. I've not seen anything that would indicate otherwise.
Thank you so much, Mr. Investor.
Thank you. I appreciate your taking the time to come here.